Greetings. Thanks for stopping by. Health and happiness to you. I'm Skol, and this is the Microtech MSI. And here at Skol EDC, we're doing a special feature of an American-made knife every day leading up to 4th of July. So yesterday, today, tomorrow, and the next day, every day all the way up to the 4th of July, we will feature a new Made in America knife to celebrate America. And we've also got some challenge coins here. At the end, we'll pick one of those up and look at both sides of the details. That's something else we're doing. We're featuring one challenge coin per day, so we'll do that at the very end. We'll do a tabletop with the Microtech MSI. Microsoft is a software company. This is Microtech knife company. And we'll do a tabletop review. First, let's open it up. We'll do a flip from underneath. And by the way, that noise I make that I've been doing, it's got a name now too. I'm calling it the power whip because it kind of sounds like a whip, but with a little more power. So let's do it. So maybe that's my thing. Different channels have sound effects or catchphrases. My thing is the power whip, and I think that's fun. And what are we doing here? So why did I pick this one? I got this recently. We went to Blade Show, me and my high school boy, and I picked this. We stopped at the Microtech Showroom on our trip down on the way, and I got it in the showroom. So let me show you some pictures real quick. So here's a map of our trip, starting in Dayton, Ohio, Greene County, Ohio, and we did a long drive the first day until we got to Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina. And so the idea was we went to Blade Show last year and we went straight down and back, and we saw Chickamauga battlefield was on the way. That's what we did last year. But this time I thought, what can we see that's different? And let's make a bigger road trip out of it. So, and because it was 250th year of America, so to celebrate the big 250 is a big number. Let's go see some Revolutionary War battlefields, because that's what we're celebrating this year anyways. So Guilford Courthouse, the American General Nathaniel Greene, and I mentioned we were from Greene County, Ohio, named after him. General Greene, major significant battle. Then we went down to Cowpens, another Revolutionary War battlefield, and we saw that. So we got 2 Revolutionary War battlefields in. Then Waypoint C, we were like, what can we see on the trip? What's nearby on our path? So the Microtech Showroom was on the way. And in that same town, Asheville, North Carolina, that's also where the Biltmore Mansion is. So you might have heard of that. That's America's biggest house. The mansion is as big as our entire cul-de-sac that we live on here. So we did the tour. Then we went to the main event, was Blade Show, Atlanta, Georgia, 2026. Then we went over to Huntsville, Alabama, the Space and Rocket Museum there. I thought that'd be good for Ethan. He's in high school. Then what could we see on the way home? We went to Mumfordville, Kentucky. They have a Stonehenge replica there called Kentucky Stonehenge. Also, there were some Civil War memorial parks for some battles for the bridge. There was an important railroad bridge that went over the river, and I think that was called the Green River. So we got a green theme going on. So we checked that out while we were there. Then we went up to, there's also a John Wick theme going on here, because Microtech in the first 2 movies, John Wick carried a Ultratech in the first movie and a Microtech Odon in the second movie. And if you've seen the movies, he likes bourbon, and Blanton's bourbon specifically. And Blanton's is a brand name under Buffalo Trace. So we did the Buffalo Trace distillery tour, was fun. And then we finished our trip back home after that. So that was our route, 6-day road trip. We called it the Long Boys Road Trip. So that was fun and memorable. We made a big long trip out of it and saw a whole bunch of stuff. So the main event was Blade Show, and after, did I show you the actual pictures? Here's us at the Microtech Showroom. And in the showroom, it's not that big of a place, but they have these fancy cabinets showing off their products. And then over here to the right is a receptionist, cashier. And she knew her stuff. She even knew stuff that wasn't listed on the website. So I told her, "You really know your stuff." And I could see she got a happy glow. She liked that compliment. And then I got the M.S.I. So that box right there is the same as this box, because I got my M.S.I. here in the Microtech showroom. And then the very next day at Blade Show, we went to the booth. That was the first thing we did. And we were trying to get the show special. So we got the Blade Show special is a Ultratech Generation 4. And here on the Blade you can see Blade Show 2026. So I got one and my boy also got one. So that's his first Microtech. But even at the booth I already had 2 Microtechs now from our Blade Show trip. And I was debating, should I do this one for the video or should I do the M.S.I? And so I've decided to feature the M.S.I, and I've showed off my Ultratechs in another video. You can go find it, the OTF video, but I will probably do like an Ultratech specific video when I can later. But right now we're doing a tabletop of the Microtech MSI, and here at Skol EDC we do our homework. So what does M.S.I stand for? It stands for Microtech Standard Issue. And you might think that's kind of a boring name. That's kind of what I thought when I first heard it, like plain, regular, average. But then if you think about it another way, maybe if you think about it like this, the standard Microtech is something super cool. So that's just the standard, to have something super cool at Microtech. So if you think about it that way, then it's cooler. Or you can just call it the M.S.I like everybody does. Microtech MSI, because the acronym sounds pretty cool, MSI. They also have a MSI Mini. So this, as you can see, this is pretty large and big, and we'll show you the exact specs here next. But they've also made a Mini, which actually is more of a regular size. So this is actually larger than the normal EDC range, and I'll show you what I mean right now with a size comparison. So we always use the paramilitary 2 for a size comparison. So power whip. You can see that this represents the high-end size, the higher size, 3.5-inch blade for EDC. And you can see the Microtech MSI is longer handle, longer blade. And then we got a 3-inch Sage. So 3 to 3.5 are your normal ranges for an EDC knife. And you see that the MSI is size comparison bigger. So we're bigger than the normal range, but I like bigger, longer blades. That's my thing. But just so you know what you're getting something bigger with the standard MSI. And how big is it exactly? So here's our ruler. We're getting 8 7/8 inches, so just under 9 inches. 8 7/8 total length, and then your blade length to the tip here, 3 7/8, and your cutting edge, 3 3/8, and then your handle length, total handle length, tip to tip there, looks like 5 inches even, and then where you'd put your hand normally up to the front of this guard, but you do have a choil, so you can choke up. But you're getting 3 3/4 where you would lay your hands across there, and I will demonstrate here in a second. But let's do all our stats first. So let's get the weight. So normal EDC weight is 3 to 5 ounces, and we're getting 5.61 ounces, so that is heavy. Anything over 5 I say is heavy. So for me, if I'm wearing my belt like usual, heavy, I like big cold steels, big heavy duty, big knives, and with the belt, that's no problem for me. But just so you know what you're getting, that is what we call heavy, or above the normal EDC weight above the normal EDC range size. And let's also check our stock thickness, which was listed as 0.16, I believe. And notice I cleaned my screen off. I noticed it had dust on it on the past couple of videos, so I finally got around to, I got to clean that screen off. And we'll give it a tear, so maybe you can read it better now. And I'm getting 0.163, so that's nice and thick, very thick. And I'll go down a little bit. 0.159, so you could round that up to 0.16. So that is very thick stock. The normal stock thickness for a EDC size range is 0.12. So if we're up there at 0.16, we are significantly thicker. But I kind of do like when you go above 3.5 inches that you do get thicker stock. So you've got the stock thickness to handle more heavy duty stuff. That's what we got here. And if you read the description on their website, it's called heavy duty. And I agree with that. And let's look at some details here. So we did all the specs. Now let's look closely at the knife. You got the laser engraved Talon logo for Microtech. And then there's some wording here, which will probably be hard to see because it's so small. And if I can get the light without a glare, I don't know if you can read that. But there's some writing. There's not really a ricasso. But up here, it says M390 and it says MK. So Microtech has their own, I guess they're calling it their own special blend of M390. But what is M390? What is its characteristics? It's very high in corrosion resistance, 9 out of 10. And if you think of standard S30B steel, but then turn the dial a little bit more towards edge retention, that's what M390 is. So very close to S30V, but turn the dial a little bit more towards higher edge retention. So that's what you got there. Pretty good high-end blended steel with a above average edge retention, which is good for pocket knives. And then you also have the very high corrosion resistance, almost equal to MagnaCut, super high corrosion resistance. So that's what M390 is. And look at our finish here. We've got a stone wash on the bevel and a stone wash on the long swedge. But then here on the flat, it's a satin shiny. So they call that the apocalyptic finish, or just APOC for short. So I got the apocalyptic version. And I just looked on their website because I was just finishing my research before the video and noticed that this particular version is sold out now. So I got this in the showroom. I wonder if I got the last one of this particular version. I don't know. But they have other colors, other finishes, other handle materials. This is the aluminum with the milling. And not only is it milled, but it's also domed over, contoured. So that makes this knife handle very comfortable. So here's my large size glove. Fits in the hand, in the normal grip up to this finger groove guard area. You get your full 4 fingers easily there. Feels very comfortable. You can feel how it's contouring. I can kind of feel that the pocket clip is there a little bit. So maybe that's sticking up a little bit. But it depends on where you get it in the pocket of your hand. Then you got a nice flat area here and an extended finger choil, so you can choke up for even different hand positions, and that feels comfortable on the flat. And you got some big jumps there, big jimping, and that feels good. One thing I like about this type of choil, I call it a no snag or low snag. Some choils are high or they have a deeper arc, and you could get if you're cutting a string or material, it can get snagged up in the choil. But you can see that's a nice shallow choil, so that would help it not to snag, because the material, if it got in there, could just ride right out. And you got a longer knife here, so you have a lot to work with. And let's look at that factory edge. Very nice, even factory edge that looks really good. And there's the other side. catch it in the light. There we go. Nice factory edge. Nice choil. No, I'll call that a no snag choil. And you got your long thumb hole, so you can deploy either way, or you can just swing it open. So this works like a cross guard, and so you can just deploy that back and swing it open, or you can do your normal power whip like I did, which is always fun. And I usually don't make that noise, although I have kind of developed a habit where I'm doing it even when I'm not on camera. So I don't know, that's probably not good, but for the camera, I try to do the power whip just for fun. Makes it more exciting. So, and you got your milling for texture. You can feel those grooves, and they kind of change direction as they go down into this finger groove. You can see the lines going that way, but then it's going that way. So that's an interesting effect in the light. But that looks really nice. I also like how the lines here kind of match up. So the line meets the line as it changes direction. That's good appearance. And then you can see several hardware screws. So this one is for your stop pin, and it's a nice big beefy stop pin, and it's right pretty much above the pivot. So your force of direction is back towards the liner. So that's really good. That's going to be a very tough, solid stop pin design with a thick stop pin and oriented good with plenty of material supporting it. And you do have, there you can see the liners are nice and thick, which is supporting everything. And then the thickness of the liner continues, but then here there's a transition point, which is different. So you have exposed liners, but then all of a sudden the aluminum wraps around, it becomes inset for the rest of the way. And then you have a partial backspacer, and you can feel some grooves here. So there's some jimping in the back, and there's some jimping underneath. So those mill lines go into actual jimping grooves back here. So that all feels real nice. You get lots of traction. You got enough handle to work with for lots of different grips. Let's try it reverse grip. That feels nice. And you can put your thumb over the top either way for a pull stroke. And then you could reach out here. Even though it's swedged, you still got a pretty thick landing spot for your finger. Sometimes if you swedge it, it becomes too thin to put a lot of pressure, but you can still see you've got a nice, pretty thick spine, even with that little bit of swedge. And then, or you can just go back here with your thumb, which feels really nice, and the choke up feels really nice on the no snag choil. And this is similar to a crossbar lock, except you've got that coil spring behind. So that coil spring forces the lock into position as you open it, and let's demonstrate that. So as the knife is opening, you'll see it move here at the beginning. See it moving. That's your detent pressure. Then you get past that, and then once it reaches the fully open position, you'll see this lock push forward into position. So I'll try to hold it still so you can see it move. And all of a sudden it snapped. I don't know if you saw it move, but it moved forward in a position. Let's do it one more time. So hopefully you can see that one more time. And once it reaches the fully open position, it rams in there, so it's called a ram lock. And that's stronger than a crossbar lock and more reliable. Coil springs are more reliable than the omega springs on the normal crossbar locks. So this is the ram lock. Also, this little platform here moves. When you pull it back, you can see that moves. So that whole thing is the ram lock. And then it's ambidextrous. So you could grab this with either hand, have equal access. And then you've also got your pocket clip is reversible. So this is a fully ambidextrous. That's one of the benefits of crossbar or ram lock style. And Benchmade used to call it an axis lock. Fully ambidextrous, so you can reverse that if you want to be a lefty. And I got the filler tab, and those screws do stick up above the filler tab, so you can see those are domed screws on that filler. And then you got a nice backspacer, and let's check our termination back here. No, the blade's tucked in there nice, so you're not ever gonna snag the tip. You always look for that. How's our centering doing? looks dead center to me. Let's get it lined up with the camera so you can see. Can you see? To my eye, it looks right on. So it feels hefty, 5.6, you can tell. That kind of gives it a quality feel too. It feels heavy duty. This one's the aluminum version. I'm sure the polymer one is a little bit lighter. And let's deploy it again with our power whip. So M390 is a high-end steel, milled, nicely milled aluminum, heavy duty, does have lots of hardware. And let's look down in the channel. You can see the coil spring there in the deploy position. And your pocket clip. And your back spacer. So a little tour of the knife. Wharncliffe. Actually, let's do our Wharncliffe tester on this. Should I call this a Wharncliffe or a sheep's foot? So this is a square piece of paper folded over, so you have 90 degrees here, and this 90 gets cut in half, so that's 45. And if it's more acute than 45, so to me, it's looking like this is a sheep's foot. I'd call this a sheep's foot because there, when you line up, there, you can tell here there's a slight curve to the blade as well. But you can see that it's steeper than our 45-degree angle, so I'm going to call that a sheep's foot. And if it was more acute, I call that a Wharncliffe. That, I hope that catches on, because that reduces the ambiguity of, is it a sheep's foot? Is it a Wharncliffe? So this is my simple Wharncliffe detector. So not a Wharncliffe, pretty close, but it's a sheep's foot. But you still have your usable tip. So this is a sheep's foot that still has a pretty prominent tip for using a tip. And you'd have no problem using that on a cutting surface, using the tip. And then, so the thing about sheep's foot, since they're not as acute, not as good for thrusting, so I'd probably want a different steel if it was a thruster anyway. But for cutting, which is what this is designed for, you got the right steel. M390 high is a good high-end steel with high edge retention. So this is a good cutter, good heavy-duty utility cutter. That's what you got here. And it feels quality, which makes it funner to carry too. So one reason I picked this one to do is I've been carrying it some, but I wanted to get it on video before it got worn or scuffed up, so it still looks pretty new. But this one here, this is the Blade Show special. That'll probably be just to keep in my collection and not in my pocket. I have another Ultratech that I put in my pocket more often. So there you go. By the way, I got this patch for free at the Microtech Showroom, and then inside the box you get a free sticker and a instruction manual and a foam fit on the inside. And the show special also came in the same standard size box. Never compromise. Microtech. Welcome to the Microtech family. You can pause and read that if you like. And America, 100% American made, right there. So I think we're getting towards the end of the video. We demonstrated the ergonomics. We demonstrated the action. Now you do have to give it a little bit of English because it's a big heavy blade. So I just give it a lot of English and it works for me. And so a manual, and then the weight. So above the average EDC size range. Oh, I know what we do. Let's pick a coin. Let's look at a coin. We did this one in the last video. So let's just go over here so I can keep track of which ones I did. So for America's 250, I got some cool challenge coins. So let's look close at the details. United States of America up to 2026. 250th anniversary. We got a bald eagle, our national symbol. Statue of Liberty flag in the background. And the Liberty Bell. And let's see what's on the other side. Oh, we got the Liberty Bell again. And the eagle again. And the Capitol building. And the flag down there. And the flag up there. So, celebrating America, there's a pretty cool, nice challenge coin. So that's the one we looked at for today. And if you want to see any of the other coins, I'll do one coin in each video. So here, Made in America, celebrating Made in America. A lot of fun on that Blade Show road trip. So I'm really enjoying this one. This one is giving me a lot of joy in my pocket. I feel like a magnet to it. So I've been trying to carry it, and now that it's on video, I don't have to worry about it, and I can just use it. So thanks for stopping by. Subscribe. Come back later to see the other American-made videos and hear the power whip again. And I'm Skol, and have a nice day, and remember, always carry a knife.